My position is a project officer for the Tamarisk and Bridal Creeper Weeds of National Significance project, and I work very closely with Judd on that project. Our job is to survey a really long section of the Avon River, about 150 kilometres of it, and locate the presence of these weeds of national significance, and also undertake the chemical control of the weeds. So it's a big project and it keeps us well and truly busy.
Some of the weeds we control is tamarisk, bridal creeper and boxthorn, and we undertake chemical control on those weeds.
Well, this is our chemical and equipment storage area. We have a secure facility for our chemicals, which is very important that those chemicals for weed control are stored securely.
So this is the boom spray that we use on the, we put it on the back of our ute, and this just gives us, it's easier to carry around chemical and spray chemical in areas that we wouldn't be able to get packs in and stuff.
A lot of the areas where we are treating the weeds is in fairly difficult to access parts of the river, so the only way we can do chemical treatment is with backpack spraying, and it's quite physical to be walking along the river with 20 litres of chemical on your back spraying weeds, but it's a very important part of what we do. All the team members are required to carry backpack sprays at some point, but it's quite physical work when you're trekking up and down the river with 20 litres of chemical on your back.
This is the kayak sometimes that we'll use to access islands on the river, to spray weeds on the islands on the river. And this is some of the PPE and other things that we'll use out on field when spraying weeds.
This piece of equipment's been very useful for us, and it's on loan from the Department of Water here in Northam, a quad bike, which allows us access into the more difficult areas of the river for weed spraying.
Some of the chemicals we use can be quite dangerous working very close to the river. Glyphosate and some of the other chemicals that we use can be dangerous to some of the life on the river, birds, some aquatic life, and some of the native plants around the river can be affected by these chemicals.
Yes, we have to be very careful in the use of chemicals, particularly close to the water, and all our team members are trained and qualified in the correct and safe use of the chemicals. There are other methods of weed control, particularly with the bridal creeper, which is biological methods, and there is a rust fungus which affects the bridal creeper, and it does occur within the populations of bridal creeper along the Avon River, but it needs a lot of help to spread. So that is one aspect of bridal creeper control that we have been looking at, and there's also an insect, a thrip, which will attack the bridal creeper, but we haven't had the funding to be able to use that technique. In this section of the river there is a series of islands, and the only way to access the islands is by canoe. So this is one of the places that we launched the canoe to go out to the islands to do the chemical control work, because a lot of those islands are infested with bridal creeper, and they're good locations for us to do the weed control there. And it's also a very important wildlife habitat, and unfortunately the bridal creeper and other weeds are impacting on the biodiversity, so we're very keen to eradicate the weeds from these islands particularly.
This is some of the bridal creeper that we've sprayed. At the moment it's in the dormant stage, so it's not that green, but around autumn it will go green again and we'll have to come back and spray it.
This particular site is known as Gilgering, and we've chosen it because there is a very thick infestation of bridal creeper here, and it is gradually spreading down the river. The reason we think there's a lot of bridal creeper here is because there is a church right on the banks of the river, and it's been here since the 1870s, and traditionally bridal creeper, as the name suggests, was used in bridal bouquets, and it didn't take long for the plant to establish itself as a weed and start spreading into the river. And it's very much the case all the way along the river. Wherever there's a church or a settlement, you will find particularly heavy infestations of bridal creeper. It produces a bright red berry in late spring, which is attractive to birds, and the birds will spread the berry. And also flooding is a very efficient way to spread bridal creeper.
This is one of the weeds of national significance, the tamarisk, which is one of the weeds we work most to exterminate on and around the river. And we use a lot of, our main method of killing this weed is chemical.
The reason the tamarisk is such a serious environmental threat is that it spreads very easily by flooding, and the parts of the plant can break away and be spread downstream and establish themselves as new infestations. And we need to identify and control the existing tamarisk in the Avon River to stop its spreading in flood events. And there's enormous potential for it to do that. It's already impacted on large sections of the Finke River in Central Australia and other locations around the country. And it's posing one of the most serious environmental weed threats in this country. But we find the most effective method of controlling tamarisk is to actually cut it with chainsaws, and then we put the chemical on, because to cover the whole plant with chemical could be very expensive and time consuming. And this is not a particularly big plant, they grow much bigger, and there are infestations along the river which are so thick that you can't even walk through them.
We're in York, and this is one of our signs, part of the Wheatbelt and around Weed project, to educate the public about some of the weeds that are near the river and close to where they're living. The bridal creeper and tamarisk, this is just to make them aware of those weeds.
With weed control, we tend to focus very much on chemical control of weeds, but we need to think a little bit more expansively about how we can do effective weed control. There are a number of biological control techniques which have been used on environmental weeds, but there's much more research needs to be done. There's also other techniques that would be available for us, like the use of fire in an appropriate way can be an effective method of controlling weeds in some cases. But certainly by throwing more chemicals at the problem is not necessarily going to help in the long term. So we're hoping that there'll be more money available for research and development into more effective and sustainable ways of controlling environmental weeds, particularly in the riparian zone or the area along the river, which is so important. Without ongoing funding and without the support of the community and local governments to continue with the control work of environmental weeds in the river, these weeds will once again re-establish themselves and become an ongoing threat to the environment of the river.